Well, a lot of the paintings in this show were around the time when I was painting self-feeders, and I was thinking about people who had the ability to eat themselves, and then they could sort of remake themselves by like making new parts, like sort of sculpting new parts for themselves out of their own digested material. And so in a way they had a hand in their own making, and the survival of the fittest became a situation of you had to be good at making things. Well, it initially started as drawings, and I never thought that I was going to make them into paintings, because I thought that they would be maybe too garish and potentially hugely embarrassing. But then I became, and at that time I was making these other paintings of these sort of large women and sort of thinking about abstract painting. But then I became more and more interested in making these paintings of the self-feeders, and I was more interested in that kind of situation, like that they could regenerate, that they would sort of be always in this sort of state of being unfinished. But then I started to feel that they became almost too autonomous. Like a lot of times I invent fictions, and I want the fictions to be very logical. And in that situation, I started to feel like they were maybe too self-absorbed, or they didn't need each other because they didn't need to go anywhere, because they didn't need to find food. They didn't need to talk to each other because they didn't need to reproduce. So then I thought maybe there could be this sort of reformed group. So in a way, I like these fictions as a way of setting up a framework that has kind of limitations that are built in, that you kind of bump up against as you're making the paintings. So there's a gravity fanatic, and that was sort of just started with this idea of like what would be the most impossible thing to be a fanatic of, and I was thinking gravity, because it's the most it's sort of a given. There's kind of no point to be a fanatic about gravity. And then there's other paintings in the exhibition which have much more of a kind of a patterned field, and some of the figures are sort of singed. And I was sort of thinking about it, if something had happened outside of the painting and affected some parts of the picture but not others. And I felt like they had this kind of two-dimensional kind of space in a three-dimensional picture, and I was interested in them as being almost a way that you can sort of reorganize the picture from within. Like they could be like cutouts in a way, or maybe they're not actually. The painting that is singed is of a picnic scene, and it's sort of a hard situation because I feel like I'm a very additive painter, and I had to sort of imagine a whole painting and then sort of take half of it away, and that was really difficult for me. But I was sort of thinking, well, maybe they weren't even really having a picnic, because they seemed like they could have been taken from other places and organized in the space of the painting.